Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist, an author, and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. So thrilled to have you join us today. We're going to be talking about feelings and much, much more. So I'm sure you'll enjoy it as much as I did as I was interviewing Rachel Kaplan. She's a licensed psychotherapist, a marriage and family therapist with a thriving practice in San Francisco Bay Area. She's a creator and host of the acclaimed podcast. You ready? Healing, Feeling Shit Show. She's active on a variety of social media channels and has published multiple features in Common Ground. Kaplan has studied yoga, meditation, and hands-on healing practices in India and Nepal. She's earned a master's degree in counseling psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies. And she's trained in cutting-edge trauma modalities such as EMDR, eye movement desensitization, reprocessing. She divides her time actually between Oakland and Joshua Tree, California. And we spoke about how to let go of your feelings and how to work through your feelings in a way that would be very, very useful, and healing the parts of yourself that are amazing and waiting for you to actually, take care of them, and how you do that. She's the author of the book, Feel, Heal, and Let That Shit Go. It's your guide to emotional resilience and lasting self-love. So I'm sure, again, you'll enjoy this as much as I did. You can find her at thefeelingmovement.com. And be sure to subscribe to my podcast, the same podcast, and my YouTube channel, and connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com. And you can access the podcast and the YouTube channel and all of the social media from foojanzeine.com. Subscribe to Foojan app, which you're going to go through the guided journaling of AIT, Awareness Integration Therapy, in 32 areas. And we have launched Mira, which is the AI chatbot within it. And then you can ask questions, any questions that you like, and it will answer you from the awareness integration theoretical perspective. We've had so many amazing results, and people love to not only do their own journaling and guided journaling and go through the healing process, but when they need skills or where they need to ask some questions, then Mira answers it. So go to Foojan.com or go to Apple Store or Google Play and all of it, and then you will find Foojan app. I love to hear from you. So share your thoughts with me, message me, tell me what topics you want us to talk about. I'm really, really grateful whenever I hear from you. Without further ado, here's Rachel Kaplan.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Do you wish to wake up one day and hit the life reset button? Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine, helps you navigate crucial life areas, heal the past traumas, and cultivate fulfilling relationships and careers. Life Reset is your guide to a profound journey to reshape your life. Grab your copy on Amazon or Audible now and embark on a path to a more joyous and fulfilled life.
Well, hello. Welcome to the show, everyone. Rachel Kaplan. So nice to have you.
So nice to be here. Thank you for welcoming me.
So I love the name of the book, Feel, Heal, and Let That Shit Go. Thank you, sister. So how come
How come I called it that?
Yeah.
Well, it was a big journey with the title, as you might imagine. I originally wanted to call the book Emotional Potty Training for Grown-Ups.
I love that one too. I love that one too.
The ladies of the publishing industry, I have found more women there. They said, honey, we don't talk about poop. So we went from that idea to eventually we landed on wanting it to be called How to Feel Your Feelings. And there was going to be a little spice about letting shit go in the subtitle. And then the marketing team of the publishing house said, this doesn't capture your essence. You're spicy. This is like a little bit irreverent. And so then we found this like third option that in the main title, it really gives you the bones of what the book is, like the purpose with the spice, that this is about feeling for the purpose of healing, and that through that we let our shit go. But it was a big journey, and it's an interesting thing also to swear in a title. I swear, and I have a podcast called The Healing Feeling Shit Show, so I should have learned better because it actually does create certain challenges around sharing the material, and here I am doing it again. Just gonna die on this hill, swearing and poop talk.
Oh, don't worry. We all know it. We all do it. It's just we're not going to talk about it. We're just going to talk about it. But
no.
There was also a research that says, when you cuss, I think you feel better. So what can I say?
Yeah. And more intelligent people swear more, I think they said also.
Oh, I must be very intelligent.
Yeah.
So obviously you're a therapist and I'm a therapist. So we're just going to chat about, what we've done with our work and kind of like, how we all do this kind of work for ourselves and then also for our clients. And you go through this book, it's obviously about guide to emotional resilience and last thing, creating and last thing, your self-love and healing yourself. And you also talk about a cultural shit show. You kind of open the book with, hey, you didn't just create this yourself. You kind of walked into a whole spectrum of stuff, which we carry. So can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And I realized, your first question about my title, there is a piece there that I was kind of hinting around by saying emotional potty training, but I will just add that the reason I'm using poop talk is that I have found that the single most important metaphor or the single most accurate illuminating metaphor to understand how we need to relate to our emotions is looking at how we relate to our shit. Because, the signal that we get that we need to shit is physical. It's a physical sensation in the body, and that the only way to not have that feeling is to go to the bathroom and leave a poop. We say we take one, but we actually leave it. Most people don't take it. Although I just had someone tell me a story of someone who collected their poop in a bag. So some people take it, most of us leave it. And that there's just stunning parallels. Like if you there's a little bit of shame, like you said, we all do it. We might be a little private about it. We might not talk about it much. And I think that what people have more shame about is the part of them that feels like poop. And that unfortunately emotions, they are sensations that move through the body similar to the sensations we get that we need to poop. And unfortunately, most of us weren't taught to recognize that. And instead, we were raised by humans. And I will get to the cultural shit show, but we were raised by humans that were probably doing their very best to keep us alive while feeding us, and most people's parents didn't understand how to support their children's emotions. And most people were not taught when you have this, emotional signal, this sensation-based signal in your body that's really more connected to a feeling needing to move through you, not a poop needing to move through you, you also need to get to an appropriate place where you can allow that to happen. And so instead, we were taught to, essentially numb ourselves. Like, parents put children in front of screens, they give them lollipops, they're taught, best case scenario, we're taught, there's nothing to be afraid of. Shh, you're okay. You're okay. A very loving, soothing parent is going to try to tell the child, you're fine. Don't feel that way. Or there's no reason to feel that way. In less ideal, more abusive situations, maybe there's a parent saying, I'll give you something to cry about, or actually, targeting the child for their feelings. So, even the most loving, well-intended parents can create this kind of lack of education on how to deal with emotions. And so then, moving into the world, the cultural shit show that you're asking about, we're coming in we already don't really know how to deal with our sadness, our fear, the part of us that might feel bad or like we're doing something wrong. And then we're going to, get school, peers influence, these days children are coming into, we get the media, we get social media, where there's just these countless voices and examples of how we feel like we're supposed to be. And, the fullest of which is that our economy right now, it's funded by people consuming and purchasing instead of feeling. So whether it's like you're trying to look your best in new clothes, which is one of my favorite drugs of choice, I like to call it, or if you're even more health-mindedly trying to sign up for all the newest, fasts or cleanses, or, you're trying to take all the supplements, or you're, signing up for all the therapeutic workshops. Like, if we're living in a world that basically is selling us our shame back to us, like we don't feel like we're enough, and so giving us, a plethora of things that we can buy that will make us feel like enough. Like, I just interviewed someone for a podcast, and he said that when he got his PhD, he thought that this hole inside that he wasn't smart would be filled. It's like he spent his life achieving. It's like we're trying to feel like we're enough, but none of that ever comes from the outside. There's no amount of success generally that will make someone feel like they're enough. There's no product, there's no facial line, there's no outfit. So in our world where we're all just trying to avoid the pain, it's the equivalent of being backed up with like decades of unfelt emotional shit. And what I'm saying is the alternative is learn to skillfully find the parts of you that are in pain and learn how to actually just digest and process your pain. And then you will be able to feel better. You still might buy sweaters or products, but it won't be with the same fervor.
Right. There's not a need. There's a desire to do what you need, but it's not in order to shove something down and not deal with it. And then,
exactly
the pain no matter what, because you haven't let it go. So part of the conversation is how to let it go, but how to process it and let it go. And I think because partly what you were explaining at the beginning, our family and our cultures, a lot of times just says, let it go. But the letting go is not a process. Letting go is almost like, don't worry about it. Just, don't look at it. So it's not about letting it go, but it's like, don't look at it. You have grief.
Like, get over it.
Get over it. Like, you have somebody die and it's like within 3 days, okay, you're not done. You should be back at work. Like, what's the issue? How come you're still, crying? So it's definitely there's a duality in it, which is like, there's a culture about not processing the emotion, but there's definitely, more and more about you can react the emotion. The people are having a lot of emotions, reactions where we get, shootings and violence and, everything.
Right.
Because you're holding it, because you're not processing it, because you're not healing it, it's going to come out no matter what. Yeah. It's going to, other people are going to experience your pain in the way that it's going to get expressed unhealthily, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So when you're talking about how to heal feelings, what are your suggestions in how to heal the feeling?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that your point about, there's this idea of letting it go that isn't about processing it is really true. And, if it was easy enough to let it go, then we wouldn't need a book. We would need a bumper sticker, right? It's like, you just get the idea of like having your feelings and that would be enough. I think what we're looking at as far as the how-to that you're asking about is, how do you go from being medicated and separate from your feelings or numb, and having maybe decades for most people of unfelt feelings? How do you go from that to letting it go? And it's really about allowing the feeling to come up. And for most people, at the volume of feeling that we have backlogged, it does take skill. The same way it would if you didn't ship for a week. You're going to need, some laxatives, let's say. So I describe a 2-phase approach to this. The first phase is what I call parts work. And there's a lot of familiarity right now with that term coming particularly through a very well proliferated system, IFS, internal family systems. I am not specifically IFS trained. Parts work is way older than IFS. I think they have a beautiful model. But for me, when I say that, what I mean is it's about finding and reinviting the parts of us that got hurt in our young life, and creating a relationship with these parts where they can begin to trust us again enough to show us the pain they're in. And the reason there needs to be a process of repair and reacquaintance and courting these parts back is that when we were little, whatever parts of us caused our parents to get upset, to become distant, to, disapprove. And then certainly after, in these other layers like school, media, the world. But for sure, when we were tiny and we were living in our little family cultures, those parts of us, we were all biologically wired to suppress. Because as tiny, vulnerable babies, we know that to survive, we need closeness with our parents. And so if it was your emotionality or your sensitivity or your expression of, your gender expression, if that caused friction, little children are really inclined to try to not be that way and to feel like those qualities in them are actually flawed, that there's something wrong with them for being that way. And it's actually a really adaptive response. The alternative to thinking there's something wrong with us is realizing we're innocent in an unsafe world and that the people we depend on are causing us pain. And for a tiny baby, that insight of like, I'm vulnerable, I can't get out of here, I can't hold my head up, change my diapers, feed myself, let alone keep myself safe, is too much. And so there's this assumption of fault as a mechanism to feel safe. This false sense of control, right? And so for most people, by the time you're watching a podcast like this or listening to a podcast or picking up a self-help book, it's not just that your parents cast out these parts, it's that you've spent all this time trying to deny these aspects of yourself. And so the first step is really about, and I think this is a good place for thinking. I'm not really huge on thinking because I think there's a whole world of people with very elaborate stories about why they're wounded that are still in as much pain as they were in the beginning. Like thinking itself, inside itself, is not enough in my assessment, but good place to do some reflecting. What did you think your parents didn't like about you? What did you think would cause you to lose love and connection in your life? What are you afraid of showing to your peers, to dates, to coworkers? Those are signs of the parts of you that you might still have kind of in hiding, or cast out of your authenticity. And so we start by kind of apologizing to these parts that we're sure make us unlovable, for kicking them out, for beating them up. And then we start to track them in our lives. So this looks like, you might put a picture of yourself on your phone screen. You might make a little altar somewhere in your home of pictures of yourself. And throughout your day, try to check in with these younger parts, these parts that felt like they were a problem. Like what do they actually want to do that day? Who do they actually like? What do they actually like to eat? You start to track them and include them and check on them, and start to slowly shape your life around these parts of you until they feel loved and cared for. And that sense of, okay, I finally have an adult tracking me, inviting me, listening to me, will help them start to come alive. And what most of these parts come alive with is pain. So you can't learn to feel your pain and process your pain until the parts of you that are holding your pain are back in the building. They're back online, right? That's part one. And then part two is really about, okay, now you realize you're in a lot of pain. What do you do with it? And I'll give you like the high level and then see where you want me to go in more. But it's basically a practice of learning to bring our awareness into our bodies. So from the outer world to the inner world. It's a practice called emotional release work, is another way to say learning to have your feelings. There's a layer of it that's about reactive emotional release work, which is like something hard happens to you and you know how to handle it in a responsible way, as opposed to what you were saying about like your pain's going to come out at people one way or the other, right? It's like, if something hard happens during your day, how do you not yell at your boss or your wife or your kids? How do you maybe go and have a little private movement of feelings, whether you're hitting your bed, let's say, if you're angry, or crying or shaking. Like, how do you actually move the feeling, have the feeling in a responsible way, and recover from the feeling? And then for like the deep emotional healing work that most people need, as far as creating that genuine sense of worth and self-love, it's actually about creating a proactive practice of going inside and trying to connect your emotions and move them. So you're not just waiting for your day or your life to trigger you. You're actually setting up time, like you would going to the gym, taking yoga, anything that you've cultivated in your life has taken time. And so it's like setting up maybe 20 to 45-minute sessions where you slow down with yourself, you tune in, okay, what kind of feelings do I need to move today? And in the book, I go through basically 4 different types of emotions we want to learn to move: anger, sadness, fear, and shame. And it's basically about learning the basic kind of shape of emotions. The emotions are basically explosive or implosive. And then learning different practices of, once you actually can feel it, how can you move it? How can you physicalize it? And what are different techniques, depending on the feeling, that you can do that will amplify your capacity to actually move these big feelings through? Because we need a really strong connection to ourselves, and often to a sense of feeling held by something bigger than ourselves, to be able to tolerate pains this big.
Absolutely. Yes. The model I created, awareness integration, does a lot of this concept of the awareness and then integrating the different parts into ourselves. So it really does work in looking into and becoming aware, and finding the way of accepting that part, listening, hearing, seeing, accepting, loving the part of us that has the ability to come in. Because if it doesn't, and you keep it in a different closet, it comes in and sabotages you anyway.
Right.
Yeah. It's trying to come out. It's trying to share with you. It's trying to be with you. So might as well hold a space of love and kindness for it to be able to do that. And both you and I know that when somebody has not been trained in that way, that the adult part that you're talking about has to have the learning and has to have the skills to be loving and holding. A lot of people, when their experience is that they scold that part of themselves, or because they were because they weren't necessarily parented in such a loving place, the way they also parent the other part of themselves, sometimes it's harsh. So it's
Right.
it's also the awareness of, how do I even learn to be loving and kind and caring for myself. So that's one angle of it. Another angle, and I'm sure you've seen it as a psychotherapist, which is a lot of this, the inner child movement also got into the place of, oh my God, because this part of me has been stuck in the closet for so long, and now I'm going to love it, and it's going to come out, and now I'm going to have that part of me become part of the expression out there. So if I'm 40, 50 years old, but if this part of me is a 2-year-old who wants to have a tantrum, now I have the 2-year-old have a tantrum and say, well, it's been stuck. I'm loving it. It's going to express it. Well, it could, but it doesn't need to express itself as a 2-year-old. It doesn't need to express itself as a 40-year-old. So we need to also create, bring that part in and have the expressions go from the adult. What are your thoughts about that, and how you shared, from your perspective, all of this? Because we all shared from a different perspective. So I wanted to.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that piece is really important. And I think that part of the proactive work of like connecting to the parts, giving them the space to actually have the tantrum from the place and the point of view of like they are in pain versus like kind of the adult looking at the part, is actually crucial for the healing. But that's where it's like you're doing that in your own safe, private place. And for me, I think like I'm going to give a lot of help around what is the aftermath of a feeling session. So I don't think it's particularly useful while you're trying to actually move the feeling through you to ask, is this true? And I actually think that's a way that people really stop the healing from actually taking place, is they intellectualize again. They'll drop into the pain and then they'll talk themselves out of it. So I think that the most crucial kind of pinnacle step of releasing the pain comes from allowing yourself to be with that little 2-year-old, have the 2-year-old perspective tantrum where it's like that part really doesn't feel lovable. But then after you kind of like move as much as you can for that day, whether you have to go back into your life, or you just lose access more likely. Then you would do a process of what I call reality testing, which is like, now, was that really true? You know, was it really true that my mom hated me, or was it more true that she wasn't able to show me love the way I needed? And I do a lot of support around, you don't want to make that too hyperbolic. Like there's a whole movement of people like trying to heal through affirmations. And I don't think that works. Like, I think that if we give affirmations that are too saccharine for the wounded parts, they won't believe it. And so it's like, how can you start from that very wounded part of you that barely feels lovable, barely feels allowed? What's one very basic real thought that that part can tolerate, right? So it might be, instead of like, my sensitivity is my superpower for a child that was like ridiculed for being too sensitive, it might be, I was really sensitive and it's too bad my family couldn't support me in that place. So it's like, it's true, right? It's a step away from making themselves the villain, but it doesn't go to this thing that isn't yet believable, that it's a superpower. And then the step after reality testing for me after a feeling session is self-care. Like, given how sad, scared, mad you are, whatever it is, what do you need? And that all of these pieces are put in place before you would try to make any action or change in your life. And that this is all from the premise of, you're not trying to ever have this huge feeling and then explode it on someone, right? This is like your own personal practice of becoming more integrated, releasing a little bit of the weight you've been carrying from the place of it's true, and then returning to your resourced grown-up self to drive your life. Like, this isn't about having our toddlers take over. This is about being, connecting the part of us that's most resourced, like our grown-up that wants to heal, that wants to make good choices, that wants to have a healthy life, with the part that's been desperately waiting for love and approval our whole life, like bridging those two parts so that you can move forward as an integrated person.
And I will bring it back to the name of the book, which, when you go through any kind of physiological processes, the food goes to your stomach, and then it goes into your intestine, and what are all the nutrients gets in, and then the toxic part, or the no longer useful part, goes through the process of your body until it gets let go. And then the process of us letting go is in a private place. Actually, we do take this on a private place because we see it as we see it as a waste. The rest of it is a waste that needs to go because we already got the experience out of it. So it's the same thing. It's almost like, you get the data from outside, you get the interactions from outside, all of that. And then you go through the process of it. What is it that is nutrient? What are the part of the data, part of the relationship, part of everything that I need? It's a lesson for me. It's useful for me. I can use it. I can have it as a skill. I can have it as experience. And then there are parts of those emotions and feelings and experiences, or even thought processes, that does really need to be going through the process and letting go. And as I said, some of this letting go needs to happen in a private way, and complete the process of letting go. And then we could go share what we've learned with other
people
versus dumping, the shit show on other people.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that is where we want to make choices from.
Yes. You also talked about the concept of there are some emotions that are useful and some that are really not. And like, so how do I choose between them?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I feel that. I don't think I feel that way. I think the feelings are, and maybe I'm curious what you heard that way, because maybe there's something interesting to look at. Are you saying in the book or something I just said?
No, it's something that you had written for me. Are some of the feelings more appropriate than others, and where do we draw the line?
Well, that's what's funny about having a marketing team, right? It's like, I think the feelings are, and I think that's where. Yeah, it's like that's where the poop is so great. I really think that if we just look at poop, it's like you're not going to be like, oh, I feel like I have to poop. Well, is this a worthy poop to release? You don't even necessarily look at like, well, what meals, what food, what is this poop about? It's like you just know you have to let it out. So I think that like all feelings, as far as and I think that I'm of the mind that feelings are much simpler than like the magnet that says, what are you feeling? And it gives you 30 options. like a lot of what I'm encouraging as far as how to understand your feelings is really getting it down to the most basic primary expression of feelings. So I suggest using 4 and 5 if you include happy, right? So sad, mad, scared, and ashamed. And I think that like you can't get more basic than that. And for poetry writing, and for a conversation with a partner, if you want to make it, or a friend, if you want to make more elaborate, nuanced language choices, you could. For the sake of actually letting feelings be what they are, which is a sensation-based kind of transitory experience in the body that we're usually trying to avoid, the simpler and younger the language, the better. And so making it really simple. And then it's like, they're all real and none of them are bad. Like anger has a really bad reputation in the, healing world. And, we talk about anger management and, it's like we're all trying to give ourselves permission to be sad, but you don't see people saying, yeah, be angry. But anger is also essential. And anger also is really helpful for knowing your worth, for knowing your boundaries. And, I think that's what's so great about the proactive private emotional session is, you just want it all to be allowed. You want the parts to be welcome and that their pain to be welcome and to know how to move it without needing to judge it, and also, like we just said, without acting it out. If you're going to look at, well, what feelings are appropriate to express to, with force at another person, that's a whole different conversation. And then we want to be really careful.
Yeah. So the question is not whether any emotion is appropriate. Then the question is, how can you assess in how to express it in an appropriate way? Because all emotions, for whatever their purposes and the signals that they're giving you, they're appropriate and they have a message. So to all of those as an appropriate, place that it's there because there's a reason, because they're giving you a message. You do need to look at it and get the message and then let it go. But as far as how to let it go, and if you're dumping it on others, how appropriate is it to express it, or does this need to be first let go in a private way and then expressed in a different way appropriately at work with your partners, whomever it is? Then that's an assessment you need to make. So everyone, feel, heal, and let go. Let it go. The Guide to Emotional Resilience and Lasting Self-Love by Rachel Kaplan. Rachel, anything we haven't shared that you really want people to know?
It's the fastest way out is through. And just that I think anyone listening to this, you clearly want to feel better and want to feel good. And you're probably doing so much self-care, and just knowing that allowing yourself to have your pain and becoming trained and skillful with how to do that will actually help you feel better. It can be counterintuitive because we're these organisms that are trying to not feel pain. But, we've all tried it out. There's no alternative experience to being a human that doesn't include pain. And so if you can just get really good at it, there is relief, and that there is a lightness. That I would say the last thing is just that the point isn't to try to make you really emotional your whole life. The point would be to do a really acute phase of integration and release work to come into present time where you feel like that 40 or 50-year-old person with power and agency and choice who isn't operating stuck in the past. And then just knows how to have feelings when there are feelings to have. We can get current and just have a regular emotional system that's supporting us with our lives, and feel really happy and really resilient. That's the outcome.
Beautiful. How could people find you?
Everything I'm doing is under The Feelings, and that's plural, movement.com, thefeelingsmovement.com. And I do have a podcast and social media, which you can find through that website, called The Healing Feeling Shit Show, but thefeelingsmovement.com will get you everywhere I am.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks for being patient. I was late and I'm sorry. It was so great to be here.
So nice to have you. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. Until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy, developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine, is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach.
Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing awareness integration therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.